You don't need to scream to be feared. You don't need to threaten, beg, or explain yourself. The most dangerous people in any room, the ones toxic people instinctively avoid, never raise their voice. They don't chase. They don't react. They simply are. And that quiet, unshakable presence is more terrifying to a manipulator than any outburst you could ever deliver. Thomas Shelby never begged for respect. He built an atmosphere where disrespect felt physically impossible. That's not luck. That's a specific set of silent behaviors. And today, you're going to learn every single one. Behavior 1, you stop explaining yourself. Here's what toxic people depend on: your need to justify yourself. The moment you start explaining why you made a decision, why you didn't call back, why you chose what you chose, you've already handed them the weapon they needed. Every explanation you offer becomes a loophole they'll crawl through. Every reason you give becomes a target they'll dismantle. And suddenly you're standing there, defending your own life to someone who never intended to understand it in the first place. Stop. Just stop. When you silence the explanations, something shifts. Toxic people don't know what to do with a person who owes them nothing, not even a sentence. They're built to operate in the space created by your anxiety, your need for approval, your desperation to be understood. The moment that space disappears, so does their power. Watch how Thomas Shelby operates. He doesn't explain his moves. He doesn't sit across from enemies and walk them through his reasoning. He makes a decision and lets the outcome speak. There's a coldness to it. Not cruelty, but clarity. He knows that explanation is a form of permission seeking, and he doesn't seek permission. You need to adopt that same energy. When someone questions your choices, you don't owe them a dissertation. "I've made my decision" is a complete sentence. Silence is a complete sentence. A simple look that says, "This conversation is over," that's a complete sentence too. What you'll notice is this: toxic people hate unreadable people. They need data. They need emotional reactions. They need your explanation so they can find the crack in the wall. When you give them nothing, no defensiveness, no justification, no nervous over talking, they become the uncomfortable one in the room. That discomfort is your power. The person who explains everything controls nothing. The person who explains nothing controls everything. You're not being arrogant. You're not being cold. You're simply deciding that your choices belong to you, and you're not putting them up for public debate. Behavior 2. You control your reactions in real time. Toxic people are students of your face. They study the twitch at the corner of your mouth, the slight pause before you answer, the way your eyes flicker when they push a particular button. They've cataloged every micro-reaction you've ever given them, and they use that catalog like a roadmap, knowing exactly which turns to take to get the emotional response they need. Your reaction is their reward, and if you keep giving it to them, you keep funding the very behavior destroying you. Real power isn't the absence of emotion. Don't misunderstand this. You feel everything. The anger, the frustration, the disbelief that someone could be this relentlessly cruel. Real power is the gap between what you feel and what you show. It's the discipline to let the storm happen inside, without letting it reach your face, your voice, your posture. Thomas Shelby sits across from men who want him rattled. Men who say things designed to break his composure, expose his fear, reveal his weakness. And he looks at them with those flat, unmoved eyes, not because he feels nothing, but because he's decided they don't get to see what he feels. That decision alone changes every power dynamic in the room. You can do this. Next time someone throws a verbal grenade at you, a passive-aggressive comment, a deliberate insult dressed as a joke, a question designed to humiliate, pause, breathe, let 3 full seconds pass before you respond. Those 3 seconds are not weakness. They are the active demonstration that you are not on their timeline. You are not a puppet whose strings they can pull for an instant reaction. Respond from a place of stillness, not a place of fire. What happens is almost immediate. The toxic person expected an explosion and got a controlled silence instead. Now they're the one who feels exposed. They threw something and nothing came back. That asymmetry, their chaos meeting your calm, is genuinely unsettling to them. because their entire strategy is built around escalation. Your calm short-circuits the whole system. Practice this daily, not just with toxic people, with traffic, with bad news, with small inconveniences. Build the muscle of non-reaction until it becomes your default setting. Unreadable people are ungovernable, and ungovernable people are free. Behavior 3. You move with purpose. Always. Chaos is a manipulator's natural habitat, and nothing signals easy target quite like someone who drifts through their day, through their decisions, through their life, without a clear sense of direction. When you have no anchor, toxic people become your anchor. They fill the vacuum with their priorities, their crises, their needs. And before long, you're organized entirely around someone else's agenda, while yours gathers dust. Purpose is armor. When you know what you're building, when you know where you're going, when every action you take is pointed at something that matters to you, toxic people lose their grip. They can't pull you off course because you have a course. They can't create dependency in a person who is fully occupied with their own direction. Thomas Shelby is never idle. Even at rest, there's a sense that his mind is working, calculating, planning, moving pieces. He doesn't wander. He doesn't wait for life to hand him direction. He decides what he wants, and he organizes reality around that decision. That purposefulness is magnetic to allies and deeply threatening to enemies. Because a man with a mission can't be distracted, and distraction is the primary tool of every toxic person you'll ever meet. So build your mission. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be cinematic. It just has to be yours. A goal you wake up for. A direction that makes your choices obvious. A standard you're building toward every single day. When a toxic person tries to derail you with their drama, their guilt trips, their manufactured urgency, you have something to return to. You say without saying it at all, I have somewhere to be. And you go there. The person without purpose is a person without ground to stand on. The person with purpose stands so firmly that no amount of manipulation can move them. Be that person, have that direction, and watch how quickly the chaos merchants in your life realize you're not available for their games. Behavior 4. You never chase. Not people, not validation. This one cuts deep, because most of us were taught, directly or indirectly, that the right response to someone pulling away is to reach toward them. That love means pursuit, that connection requires constant maintenance, constant check-ins, constant reassurance that you still care, still want them, still value the relationship. Toxic people weaponize that belief. They pull away strategically. They go cold deliberately. They manufacture distance because they know you'll close it. And every time you do, the power gap between you widens. You've taught them that withdrawal works. That silence earns a phone call. That cruelty earns an apology from you. You have to stop chasing. Not out of spite. Not as a tactic to make them come back, because that's just a different kind of chasing, but as a genuine, settled decision that your energy is valuable and you will not pour it into people who treat it as bottomless. There's something Thomas Shelby understands at a cellular level. The one who cares less holds more leverage. This isn't cynicism, it's physics. In any relationship where one person is constantly reaching and one is constantly retreating, the retreating person leads, always. And in the hands of a toxic person, that dynamic is used as a weapon to keep you anxious, to keep you performing, to keep you small. When you stop chasing, one of two things happens. Either the person realizes they actually have to show up, and they do, or they don't come back at all. And here's the truth that will set you free. Either outcome is acceptable, because you weren't actually losing anything by letting someone who doesn't value you walk away. You were losing a drain. Non-chasing isn't coldness, it's discernment. It's knowing the difference between a relationship worth tending and a situation designed to keep you off balance. Fill the space you used to spend chasing with something that builds you. Work, craft, relationships that are mutual, goals that require your full attention. Absence of neediness is one of the most powerful things a person can project. Toxic people are drawn to need because need is exploitable. Take away the need and you've taken away their entire angle of approach. Behavior 5. You speak less than they expect. Most people feel silence because silence makes them uncomfortable. They talk to prove they're confident. They over-explain to seem intelligent. They fill every pause with noise because quiet feels like vulnerability. Toxic people know this. They use silence as pressure and wait for you to crack under it, spilling more than you intended, revealing more than was wise, giving them information they'll use against you later. Flip the script. Make silence yours. The person who speaks less in any conversation holds more power than they appear to. They're harder to read. They give less ammunition. They seem more deliberate, more considered, more significant. Every word they do say carries more weight because it wasn't part of a flood of nervous chatter. Thomas Shelby is famously sparse with his words. He doesn't perform. He doesn't monologue to fill space. He speaks when he has something to say, and the words he chooses land like stones dropped into still water. You remember them. They hit differently because they came from a place of selection, not desperation. You don't have to be cold. You don't have to be robotic. You simply have to stop treating every silence as a problem you need to solve with your voice. Let them talk. Let them fill the space. People reveal themselves most completely when they're talking, and you will learn more in 2 minutes of strategic listening than in 20 minutes of mutual conversation. Let the uncomfortable silence sit. Breathe inside it. Watch what they do with it. And when you do speak, be precise. One sharp sentence. One clear question. One observation that shows you've been listening more carefully than they realized. Then stop. This single behavior changes how every room perceives you. You go from someone people talk at to someone people talk toward, carefully, with more respect, with the slight uncertainty that keeps people honest, because they can't quite tell what you know, what you think, or what you're going to do next. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is strategy. Behavior 6. You set limits without apology. Toxic people don't respect boundaries. Let's be precise about this. They test boundaries. They push, inch by inch, waiting to find out where your actual line is. Not the line you announced, the line you'll actually hold. Because most people announce limits and then fold. They say, don't do that again, and then absorb it when it happens again. They say, I won't accept this, and then accept it. And every time you fold, you communicate something devastating. Your limits are suggestions, not facts. What makes a limit real is consistent enforcement, not anger, not lengthy explanation, not emotional ultimatums delivered with a shaking voice. Consistent, quiet, unshakable enforcement. When something violates what you've decided you'll accept, you act calmly, without drama, without negotiation. You remove yourself from the situation. You reduce access. You close the door, not as punishment, but as natural consequence, as information. This is what happens when you cross this line. Thomas Shelby doesn't argue about his limits. He doesn't hold meetings to discuss them. He establishes what is acceptable, and he lives by it so completely that challenging it feels absurd. The boundary isn't a rule he's enforcing. It's a fact about how he operates, and facts don't require your agreement. That's the energy you need. When you set a limit without apology, without the nervous disclaimer, without softening it to make the other person comfortable, it lands completely differently. It's not a request. It's a declaration, and declarations, delivered from a place of genuine calm, are extraordinarily difficult to ignore. Practice this in small moments. Don't apologize for leaving an event early. Don't over-explain why you're not available. Don't soften no into maybe, just to avoid the temporary discomfort of someone's disappointment. Your limits are not up for vote. They are not subject to the approval of the very people they're protecting you from. Set them, hold them, and watch the people who truly respect you adjust, while the ones who are only using you reveal themselves completely. Behavior 7. You maintain distance without explanation. One of the most effective and most underused behaviors available to you is strategic distance. Not drama, not a confrontation, not a declared war, just a quiet, gradual reduction in access. Toxic people require proximity. They need to be near you to drain you, manipulate you, insert themselves into your decision-making, keep you under surveillance. Distance is physically disruptive to their entire operation, and they will notice, they will probe, they'll ask what's wrong, why you've been distant, whether you're okay, not because they care, but because they need to understand what happened to their access and how to restore it. Your job is to say almost nothing. I've so trusting. Nothing's wrong. I've been busy. Boring, uncombustible answers that give them nothing to work with. Thomas Shelby doesn't announce his withdrawals. He simply becomes less available. He redirects his time, his attention, his presence. And by the time someone notices, the distance is already established. He doesn't owe anyone an explanation for where his energy goes. Neither do you. Here's what most people get wrong. They think withdrawing from a toxic person requires a dramatic conversation, a confrontation, an intervention where you lay out all the evidence for why this relationship is harmful. That conversation almost never goes the way you hope. It gives them data, it creates an argument, and it hands them a chance to reframe everything as your problem. Distance without explanation is cleaner, it's less debatable, and it removes the danger of getting pulled back in by a well-crafted manipulation during the confrontation you tried to have. Protect your proximity. Not everyone deserves front-row access to your life. Some people belong further back, in the balcony watching from a distance, unable to reach the stage where your real life is happening. Reduce access quietly, consistently, without guilt. You don't owe anyone explanation of who gets your time. That is the one resource more precious than any other. And you are allowed, you are required, to be ruthlessly selective with it. Behavior 8. You never seek revenge. You seek growth. Here's the trap that destroys more people than the toxic person ever could. Obsessing over making them pay. You replay the betrayal. You fantasize about the moment they realize what they lost. You map out ways to undermine them, expose them, hurt them the way they hurt you. And while you're doing all of that, they are living their life. You are pouring your best mental energy into a person who already took enough from you. Revenge is a leash, and they're holding it. The most devastating response to someone who underestimated you, used you, or tried to diminish you is not retaliation. It is elevation. Becoming so clearly better, so visibly thriving, so obviously unbothered, that the contrast alone says everything that needs to be said. Thomas Shelby doesn't waste time on petty revenge. When he's wronged, his response isn't reactive. It's architectural. He builds something. He moves pieces. He plays a longer game. And eventually, the person who underestimated him understands the full weight of that mistake, not because he screamed it at them, but because reality delivered the message on his behalf. This requires patience. It requires redirecting the anger that wants to go outward and channeling it inward, into discipline, into work, into becoming something so solid that no one's opinion of you can shake it. Every hour you spend plotting against someone who hurt you is an hour you didn't spend building the life that would make you genuinely free from them. And freedom, real, total, undeniable freedom, is the only revenge that actually satisfies. When you grow visibly, when you level up in ways that are obvious and real, the toxic person who tried to hold you down becomes a footnote, not a chapter, not a wound you're still nursing. A footnote, a minor character in a story that is clearly, unmistakably yours. Stop giving your best energy to the past. Stop letting what was done to you govern what you do next. Take every ounce of anger, every drop of grief, every fragment of wounded pride, and build with it. Build something they couldn't have imagined when they decided you were easy to discard. The best life is the best answer, always. Behavior 9. You trust actions, never words. Toxic people are fluent in the language of promises. They apologize magnificently. They paint beautiful pictures of who they're going to be, how things are going to change, how this time is different. And they do this because, historically, it has worked. The words were enough to buy them another chance, and another, and another. You need to become word deaf. Not cruel, not dismissive, but genuinely, functionally unimpressed by words alone. The only currency that counts is action over time. Not one good day, not a grand gesture following a significant failure. Action over time. A consistent pattern of behavior that proves, without requiring you to believe it first, that something has actually changed. Thomas Shelby reads people through what they do, not what they say. He's heard every story, every justification, every eloquent explanation for why a betrayal wasn't really a betrayal. He long ago decided that a person's behavior is the only honest information they ever give you. Everything else is theater. Adopt that lens. When someone tells you they've changed, you say, "Show me," and then you wait. Not with hostility, but with clear eyes. You watch what they do when it costs them something. You watch how they behave when no one is looking, when there's no immediate incentive to perform. You watch whether their patterns over weeks and months align with the story they sold you in 5 minutes. Most won't pass this test, and that's informative. Not devastating, informative. It tells you exactly who you're dealing with, and exactly how much of your trust is warranted. The few who do pass it, who show up consistently, who behave with integrity even when it's inconvenient, who let time and action build the case, those people deserve your trust, genuinely, completely. But you cannot get there without first deciding that beautiful language alone is not the ticket. Actions are the ticket, and you're the one standing at the door deciding who gets in. Behavior 10. You build an unshakable sense of identity. Every toxic behavior, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the hot and cold dynamics, the deliberate undermining, has a single target: your sense of self. Because a person who knows exactly who they are cannot be successfully manipulated. You can't gaslight a person who trusts their own perception. You can't undermine a person who doesn't require external validation for their self-worth. The entire operation depends on you being unsure of yourself. The moment that uncertainty disappears, the operation collapses. So, build your identity like you're building a fortress. Know your values, not as abstract concepts, but as lived daily practices. Know what you stand for so clearly that when someone tries to redefine you, you can look at the redefinition and say, internally and calmly, "That's not who I am," and mean it, without needing to argue it. Thomas Shelby knows exactly who he is, not in an arrogant, inflexible way, but in a deeply settled way. He knows his capabilities, his limits, his loyalties, his lines. That self-knowledge is the foundation of everything. It's why he can't be easily rattled, why manipulation slides off him, why people can't construct a false version of him that he'll believe. You need that same foundation. Spend time with yourself, not mindlessly scrolling, actually alone, actually thinking, actually asking yourself what you value, what you want, what kind of person you're choosing to be. Journal, reflect, build a relationship with yourself that is stronger than any relationship a toxic person could try to corrode. The more clearly you know yourself, the smaller the gap becomes, that gap where doubt lives, where manipulators plant seeds. A person with no internal gap gives toxic behavior no room to grow. The manipulator pushes and finds something solid, not aggressive, solid. And solid people are genuinely frightening to those who rely on the unstable. Know yourself deeply, build yourself deliberately, and walk through every room, every relationship, every challenge as the person you've chosen to be, not the person someone else's manipulation tried to make you. These 10 behaviors aren't about becoming someone else. They're about becoming so completely yourself that there's no gap for anyone else to occupy. Thomas Shelby didn't build his presence through aggression. He built it through absolute, unwavering clarity about who he was and what he would not tolerate. That clarity is available to you today, not when life gets easier, not when people treat you better. Now, start with one behavior. Practice it until it becomes you. Then add another. Build this version of yourself, one silent, powerful choice at a time. The right people will notice. The wrong ones will leave. Both outcomes are exactly right.